Instead of focusing on all the small exceptions that you might want to automate or digitize, focus on the things where you can make the most difference within a short time frame and with a minimum investment. My name is Tarik Fahlane. I'm responsible for the consulting team at Onventis in the Benelux. So together with a team of consultants, we implement the software that Onventis delivers at new customers, and we help our existing customers with changes that they need to make in their configurations. That's an interesting question. I think it's two different parts. It's very much depending on the type of customer I'm working with. We have those customers which are like large, they have a high volume of invoices and a high volume of orders that they make. And for me, it's very, very satisfying if I see at the end of a project that we are processing thousands and thousands of invoices in an automated way for such a customer, because it immediately makes the value that I added to that customer, it makes it very visible. So that is for the companies which are typically of a bit of a larger scale. If we look at the smaller scale companies where they didn't have that much automation yet, it's also very satisfying to see that, for example, customers in the past, they worked with sending emails to approvers to get invoices or orders approved. And at some point, they are completely using our system with automated workflows, and they have no email communication about all those processes anymore. And everything is just maintained within the system with clear logging. And then having those people come to you at the end of a project and saying that their life got better or their job got better, simply because of the project that we did, I think that's also very satisfying to see. There's a lot of things that are happening in the finance world already for a few years. So we see in many different countries the e-invoicing topics are getting more and more important. As an example, the French authorities are introducing an own e-invoicing mandate somewhere next year. It is super important for finance departments to be aware of those things that are happening in the market, and also be prepared for the changes that they might need to make in their processes. From a compliance perspective, that is a very important one. The benefit with e-invoicing is also great. We can really digitize and automate a lot more when you work with e-invoices compared to the traditional PDF invoices. So that is a big improvement also for the finance work field. And additionally, I would say for finance, it has become more and more important to make sure that you generate data, that you have accurate data on which you can make decisions as a company. So finance has become more and more important in generating that data, making sure that the data is also correct, so that leadership teams, procurement teams, even other teams like IT teams can make their decisions based on accurate finance data. And that's very important to have that in the back of your mind when you're working with your processes, to automate them, to digitize them, to always think about, okay, what kind of data are we generating with this, and can we use this to optimize our processes further? A long-term impact, I think digitization is one where we see that it has been going on for many years, but there's still so much to win within the finance domain. I think traditionally finance is also a little bit of a domain where companies find it scary to digitize and to automate. And that also brings with it that they are very careful with introducing new processes, new systems, because sometimes they are afraid that they will lose the control over everything that's happening. And of course, it's money related, so the impact can be quite high if you do it wrong. But I think digitization is still something that will go on for many, many years in the finance process, simply because there are always new requirements coming up on how you deal with your finance processes. But also, I think if we look at the sustainability topics, that is something that we see, of course, in the past years. Also there for finance, there's an important role, and not necessarily because they can influence the let's say carbon emissions directly by themselves, but mostly because they are one of the departments that can generate a lot of important data for other departments to make any decisions related to sustainability. I think there's the role for a finance department has become bigger there over the past years and is still growing. One of the things, if you look at the relationship between the finance department and the procurement department, for example, for them it's very important to work together in terms of managing their supplier base. So aligning on what kind of payment conditions you agree with your suppliers, how fast you can pay those suppliers. It can also bring discount benefits, but it can also bring relationship benefits with the suppliers. If you look at the relationship between finance and IT, for example, also there, that relationship has become more and more important, simply because the finance team is more and more depending on IT solutions, so AP automation systems, reporting and dashboarding systems. So also there, IT involvement is very important. So it's good to have a good relationship between your finance department and your IT department in the company as well. But also for senior management, finance is a huge input in terms of data based on which the senior management can make decisions. If we're talking about investments, how to allocate the money, basically the funds that you have within your company, also like acquisitions that you might want to do as a company, to buy another company, to strengthen your portfolio, for example. Those are typical things where there's a very high dependency on the finance department, because they need to be able to predict how much funds you have available at which moment in time. So I think there's a lot of things where the finance department basically has an overlay with other departments, and it's growing, I think, in the past years, and it will grow in the next years as well. Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is have an efficient process in how to handle your incoming invoices, but also outgoing invoices, for example. Because the more time and effort is spent on those processes, the lower your margins as a company will be. So I think that is the obvious one, where it's about process optimization, automation, trying to make sure that you don't need a lot of human involvement in handling all those repetitive processes. You don't want your highly educated employees to work on things that can also be done by a computer. So I think there, if we look in towards the future for companies, there's still a lot that can be done. But I also think, like I mentioned earlier, it's super important for finance to think about what kind of additions they can do to the reporting data that you have available as a company, to help the rest of the company make smart decisions. And that can really also give senior management and other departments to plan much more forward in terms of funds that are available, how they can do their investments, etc. Yeah, I mean within Onventis, we have an own procurement system that we of course use. We use our own software for that, and also we are using our invoice processing software to process any incoming invoices. This is a process that we want to automate as best as we can, because this is our core business also when we consult our customers in improving their processes. So that is a very important one. That reduces the number of hours we need to spend on those repetitive tasks in processing invoices, because we know what kind of invoices we can expect based on orders that we created. I think that is a very important one. Also, if we look at, for example, our outgoing invoices, because we of course invoice our subscriptions to our customers, we invoice our consulting services to customers. Also, that is a process where we highly automate as much as possible. Whenever a consultant registers time on a project, for example, which needs to be invoiced to a customer, there is absolutely no reason why there should be an employee in between from the moment that the consultant has registered that time up until the moment that that invoice is sent out and paid by our customer. So that's really the process that we want to have fully automated as well, to make sure that our finance colleagues can focus on the more important tasks in the business. Well, the external developments, I think the biggest ones that we see is compliance topics. So, for example, the e-invoicing mandates that we see in different countries. There's a lot of things that you need to keep up with as a finance department, and I think that will continue for many, many years still. I remember like years ago we started with the first e-invoices, and the expectations were high. So we thought that within no time there would be only e-invoices used. But if we look in reality, it's still a very small percentage of invoicing that's happening via e-invoices. And I think it's good that governments are also making this a mandatory topic. It will drive not only their processes in terms of, for example, tax collection that they need to do, but it will also highly drive the automation and digitization processes for companies. Because if you process an e-invoice, you're 100% sure that you have the data received within your systems in the way that your supplier intended it. And the same goes for you. If you invoice your customers and you do it via an e-invoice, you know exactly that your customer will receive exactly the data as you meant it to be sent there. So I think that is a very important one. And yeah, I think in terms of reporting capabilities, making data available for other departments, that is the second one, I would say. Yeah, I think definitely. It's for everyone. It's an improvement, I would say, at least for everyone who wants to do business in an honest way. If you are a company and you will start sending or receiving e-invoices, it's a big improvement. If you're a government, it's a big improvement because you can handle taxes in a very efficient way. And I think in the end, what that causes is that we have less people involved in tasks and processes which are not fun to execute, very repetitive, and also not very cost efficient. So I think also if we look at simply the jobs that we have within the finance department or finance related areas, it makes work also more fun if you don't have to focus on scanning paper invoices and getting those digitized into a system. That is something that nobody probably likes to do. At least I don't like to do it, and I think most other people probably also don't like to do it. But that really changes the finance field. And I think also if we look at finance in general, I think in the past, finance has always been like the mandatory administrative task that needs to happen. But we see more and more the strategic relevance of finance departments within companies. And also if you are then working in a finance department, it's more fun if everyone sees your role and the things that you deliver as very valuable instead of just the guy scanning in the paper invoices. Yeah, I think if you look at the role of finance in sustainability, it's of course a little bit of an abstract one because finance is typically not that much like directly customer or supplier facing. But what is important there is that finance can be a very big driver for example, the procurement department also to make their choices. What you could do, for example, is that you say suppliers which are are operating in a very sustainable way, that you can deliver them also some payment benefits. So that would also give like an incentive for your suppliers if they focus on sustainability topics as well, that you basically give them an earlier payment, for example, than suppliers which don't have that focus. That is something very concrete that a finance department can do. I don't think a lot of companies are doing such things yet, but especially if you look in other areas, I mean, for example, even the fact that we are not using paper invoices anymore is already a big improvement in terms of sustainability. So also there, finance can contribute something by making sure that you don't send out those paper invoices anymore. You preferably only do it in e-invoices. So they can do a direct contribution there. But on the other hand side, I think the biggest contribution that they can do is probably to make sure that the other departments which are customer and supplier facing directly are able to make conscious decisions based on the data that a finance department can provide. I would say get more involvement from IT in the finance area. What we see at a lot of the very modern companies, so the companies who started like after the year 2000 and later, we see typically that there's roles like a finance system specialist or a finance systems analyst. Those kind of really roles which are linked to both the finance domain and the IT domain. I would recommend every company to look at your finance domain like that. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to hire a separate person for this. It can also mean that you make your IT department more aware of the involvement that they have within a domain like finance. Like the finance teams are highly dependent on IT capabilities if they want to digitize and automate. And if there is no feeling of responsibility from any IT resources in this topic, then it will be quite a big challenge. So I would say for companies to invest in making sure that you have coverage of the IT resources that you have also in your finance domain, but even also in other domains like procurement as well.